December 20th, 1943. North African coast, near Bizerta. The sun hung low over a sea of dust and smoke. German Feldwebel Karl Weiss knelt in the sand, his rifle discarded, hands trembling as he stared at the approaching line of olive-drab uniforms. The rattle of distant gunfire was fading. The Afrika Korps had fallen. American soldiers moved quickly, their silhouettes sharp against the desert glare. Hands up. Los Aufstehen, one shouted, motioning with an M1 Garand. Weiss raised his arms. Around him, exhausted Germans and Italians did the same. The desert wind carried the smell of diesel, sweat, and burnt metal, the smell of defeat. Hours later, as night blanketed the coast, Weiss and hundreds of others were herded toward a line of waiting trucks. The war, for them, was over. Yet none knew what awaited them on the other side of the ocean. Rumors spread among the prisoners. The Americans shoot captives, some whispered. They send you to frozen camps, others said. The convoy moved through torchlit checkpoints, the sound of engines echoing in the dark. Weiss stared through the canvas flap of the truck, watching as the last German outposts disappeared into the black horizon. He had fought Rommel's war under the blazing African sun, and now he was heading into the unknown. In the morning, the prisoners saw ships. Massive Liberty transports rose out of the harbor like floating fortresses. American guards guided them up gangways, checking lists. Weiss noticed something strange. No jeering, no kicks, no rifle butts. The Americans looked tired, businesslike, almost indifferent. Below deck, cramped among hundreds of men, Weiss whispered to his friend Otto, "They feed us." "Bread, coffee," Otto replied, holding up a tin cup with disbelief. "Hot coffee." As the engines thundered and the coastline of Africa disappeared behind them, the prisoners exchanged uneasy glances. None of them had expected warmth or food. Days turned into weeks. They crossed the Atlantic under the constant fear of U-boats. Each night, the sound of boots on steel decks echoed through the holds. Yet, instead of cruelty, they found order. They were given 3 meals a day, beans, bread, canned fruit, even meat once a week. Karl couldn't help but remember the letters from home, his mother describing ration cards, coal shortages, and bread made with sawdust. Here, under the stars and stripes, he was eating better than his family in Berlin. As the ship neared the American coast, fog thickened around the convoy. Through a break in the mist, Karl saw the Statue of Liberty, silent and colossal against the dawn. "This is America," Otto whispered. Weiss said nothing. He just watched, trying to understand how his enemy could be this. Who? Man. January 14th, 1944. Camp Swift, Texas. The first thing Karl noticed was the smell. Pine trees, smoke, and bread. Real bread. Not the dry rations of the front lines, but soft loaves cooling on metal trays outside the camp kitchen. The prisoners filed through the gates, flanked by American MPs in khaki uniforms. Inside stretched rows of neat wooden barracks, surrounded by barbed wire. Above the main gate, a sign read simply, "Prisoner of War Camp 101." For weeks, Karl had imagined prison, cold cells, beatings, starvation. Instead, he found a strange kind of order. The guards spoke little German, but their tone was calm. "Work detail, mess, barracks rules," one officer barked. Clear. Efficient. Not cruel. At the mess hall, Karl's disbelief grew. Long tables, tin trays, and, to his astonishment, steaming food. Mashed potatoes, beans, cornbread, even meatloaf. Each prisoner received the same portion. An American cook in a stained apron grinned at them. "Eat up, boys. Uncle Sam's got plenty." Weiss stared at his plate. Back home, his mother had written about boiling potato peels to stretch meals. In Berlin, food was rationed by the ounce. Here, prisoners, enemies, were being served full meals by their captors. A murmur spread through the mess hall. One man muttered, "This is propaganda." Another whispered, "No, this is America." That night, as floodlights lit the perimeter and the Texas wind whistled through the wire, Weiss lay awake. The barracks were warm, the straw mattresses clean. For the first time in months, he wasn't afraid. Still, something gnawed at him, guilt. His comrades were still fighting, dying in Russia, in Italy. And here he was, full and safe in the heart of the enemy's land. In the following weeks, work details began. The POWs harvested cotton, repaired roads, built fences. The Americans paid them a few cents a day in camp tokens, which could be exchanged for cigarettes or soap at the canteen. It was surreal, a captured soldier earning pocket money from the enemy. When a Red Cross arrived, they confirmed what no German had believed possible. Under the Geneva Convention, POWs were entitled to equal treatment as U.S. soldiers. Food, medical care, mail, even recreation. Carl received his first letter from home in March. His mother wrote, "We queue for hours for half a loaf of bread. The bombs fall almost every night. Are you alive, my son?" He folded the letter slowly. Around him, laughter echoed. Some men were playing chess, others listening to a phonograph the guards had set up. Weiss felt a pang in his chest. He realized then that the enemy was not as monstrous as the Reich had said. And for the first time, he began to question everything he'd fought for. June 1944, Camp Atterbury, Indiana. Summer heat shimmered over the camp. Rows of cornfields stretched beyond the wire, and every day the prisoners marched out under the watch of a single guard in a jeep. They sang old army songs as they worked, not out of pride, but to remember home. By now, Carl had grown used to American life. He learned phrases, "Good morning, coffee break, see you later." The guards called him Carl. He no longer corrected them. At noon, the work crews rested under the trees. An American sergeant tossed them sandwiches and apples. "You boys eat better than my folks back home," he joked. The men laughed, but Carl knew it was true. Berlin was starving. Every month, new arrivals came from Europe, sunken-eyed men captured in Normandy or Italy. They brought stories of ruin. Entire cities gone, families displaced, Hitler's speeches growing desperate. The war was lost. The men of Camp Atterbury knew it before their generals did. One night, as rain pattered on the tin roof, Weiss sat by the barracks window. A young guard named Private Allen offered him a cigarette. "You miss home?" he asked. "Every day," Carl replied. Allen nodded. "My brother's in France. Maybe he's guarding your brother." For a moment, they just smoked in silence. Two soldiers, enemies on paper, not in heart. Over the next months, the Americans organized English classes, concerts, even soccer matches. Newspapers wrote about how German prisoners helped local farmers harvest crops during labor shortages. Some small-town Americans even invited POWs to church picnics under supervision. Weiss couldn't believe it. This was supposed to be the enemy. Then came the radio broadcast that silenced the camp. Berlin had fallen. Hitler was dead. Germany had surrendered. For many, there were no cheers, only quiet tears. Carl felt hollow. The war that had defined his life was over, and the country he fought for was in ashes. That evening, he watched as the American flag lowered slowly over the camp. The guard beside him muttered, "It's done." Weiss simply whispered, "Then maybe we can all go home." But even as repatriation began, something inside him had changed. He had seen another world, one where an enemy fed you, treated you with dignity, and kept you alive when your own leaders sent you to die. He would never forget that.